We call it the Save the Persecuted Christians segment, which I co-host with our friend and the president and CEO of an organization by that name, Save the Persecuted Christians, a marvelous coalition. Her name is Didi Lawgeson. And each week we try to present information about people who are in the fight, who are in many cases suffering terribly at the hands of unjust governments or other oppressive forces. And we have such a guest with us today, and I will ask Didi to introduce him now. Didi, welcome back. It's good to have you with us as always.
Thank you, Frank. It's always good to be here on Securing America with you. I'm so glad to be here today because we have a situation, a mystery really, happening in South Korea. A former U.S. diplomat is being held hostage there on an exit van for allegedly defamatory speech that he made about the president of South Korea while he was here in the United States. So that is protected speech. He went 6 weeks ago now, early June, to South Korea, landed there, and was immediately served with exit ban papers from the police. He's not imprisoned, he's not held, but he cannot leave the country. Who I'm talking about is former U.S. Ambassador Morse for Global Criminal Justice. He's also been a dean of the law school at Liberty University. He's an American lawyer, a Korean-American lawyer. And just a really fantastic person in general. He's advocated for persecuted Christians with Save the Persecuted Christians. I was on Assistant Secretary Riley's site, his X account, and found that he had just returned from Korea, and somebody commented that Morse was being held hostage there. So I went researching. There's no U.S. coverage of this in the U.S. media whatsoever at all, Frank. So I'm asking everybody to pay attention to what's happening to U.S. Ambassador Morse. So glad to have you here, Ambassador. Please tell us a little bit about your situation, what led to it, and what's the status right now.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Didi. It's good to be here with you. You know, I made a comment at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., and for a U.S. citizen to be engaged in political speech, that's at the core of our First Amendment free speech protection. And so this was constitutionally protected speech by the U.S. Constitution. And for a Korean prosecution to be happening against a U.S. citizen who made a comment on American soil is ridiculous. They have no jurisdiction, no rightful jurisdiction to this. What is really going on, this is politicized lawfare here, because what you have happening in South Korea is you have a rising dictatorship that is communizing the country, and basic rights and freedoms are being stripped from people here. And when you talk about persecution, North Korea is the worst persecutor of Christianity worldwide, according to every study every year. But there have been unprecedented steps taken by this Lee Jae-Myung regime in South Korea, where for the first time in the Republic of Korea's history, churches are being raided, pastors are being thrown in jail. Even 6 Americans who were sending the Bible and other necessities and things along those lines to North Korea via balloon, they were literally arrested and thrown in jail by this regime. And so this is something that people in our Congress have, when they discovered it not long ago, were infuriated by, that they would do such a thing. And
now,
so
let me just interject here, Morse, for level-setting purposes. I think if we talked with most Americans, they would be operating under the impression that South Korea is a democracy. It is a nation that is an important ally of the United States. President Trump had President Lee in his White House last year, and it was a very cordial meeting, somewhat surprising to me, given the reasons that it shouldn't have been. But You were an ambassador, as Didi said, at large for global criminal justice under President Trump in his first administration. So
That's right.
what on earth is going on here in terms of this ally, this democracy, this friend of President Trump's, we're told, and your mistreatment at his hands, sir?
Yeah. So actually, what you just said mirrors President Trump's Truth Social post a mere several hours before his first meeting with Lee in the White House. And he wrote, all capital letters, "What is going on in South Korea? It looks like a revolution or purge." And actually, both are correct. There has been a revolution and a purge that is going on. So if you were to think of an analogy, imagine if President Trump, his top leaders, the members of his cabinet, top military leaders, imagine that they've all been thrown into jail, that the White House has been taken over by a communist dictator, and our Congress has an overwhelming supermajority that would allow constitutional amendments at will. And that you had neighboring countries, I guess in our case it would be Mexico and Canada for the sake of the analogy, that are communist and trying to make the United States communist as well. Well, that is analogous to what is happening in South Korea. You have the rightful president who has been jailed, not only a life sentence, but multiple sentences on top of that. His top leadership, his top military leaders, they're all in jail. They've all been prosecuted. You have, through election fraud, this supermajority in the unicameral National Assembly. And
Morse, I have to interrupt you for just a second. I want you to continue this analogy and elaborating what is going on in South Korea, among other things, to you on the other side of a short break. We'll be right back, folks. I had to interrupt you, Mr. Ambassador. I apologize. We were just right up against the stops. You were describing what's going on at the governmental level inside South Korea that is very troubling indeed. Finish your thought, if you would.
You have a fraudulently elected president who is trying to assert himself as a dictator for life. And he has crushed the basic freedoms and rights of the Korean people. And, freedom of speech, free exercise of religion, freedom of expression. These things are all being smashed in South Korea. So the alliance that you're talking about is very much there with the people of South Korea. The people of South Korea love the United States, love Americans, are so grateful for what America has done for South Korea over the decades from the Korean War onward. And so...
But not so much the radical left.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Ambassador Tan,
and they're in charge. They're in control right now.
Understand.
Can you tell us, Ambassador Tan, since Assistant Secretary for Democracy, Human Rights and Labor, Riley Barnes, was just in Korea, has the U.S. government reached out to you? And also, has Liberty University reached out to you? I continue to be perplexed that you've been there for 6 weeks and the U.S. media has not picked up on this, is not reporting about it. I've reached out to state and I haven't heard back from them. What are they saying to you?
There have been a number of high-level people in the U.S. State Department. I will not name them for their sakes. And they are aware of the situation. Somebody very high up said that the situation is deplorable. So there is an awareness. I'm being told that things are happening behind the scenes. And so I'd like to think that, when I was advocating for Pastor Sun, who was unjustly put in prison.
That's Pastor Sun Hyun Bo of Sagero Church. He didn't close down during COVID, and he was very outspoken, even during church services, about the candidate at the time, Lee Jae-Myung. Go ahead.
Yes. All that was necessary was one statement from Vice President J.D. Vance to the Prime Minister of Korea demanding his release, and he was instantly released. And so I think it would be if somebody like Vice President Vance or President Trump or Secretary Rubio were to either privately, if it's better done privately, I would understand that, or publicly, decided to make an unequivocal statement in regards to the unacceptability. See, this would be unacceptable for any American citizen to be held by this regime, much less someone who served as one of President Trump's ambassadors, where it even has implications for the Korean-American alliance, which, as I was saying before, is staunchly with the Korean people who love America and Americans, not with this fake, illegitimate regime that is anti-American, pro-North Korea, pro-Chinese Communist Party. And the U.S. better wake up and realize that that is what they're dealing with here.
Right. Well, and you brought to mind this sort of anomaly that you had the president putting down a marker right before he entertained Lee Jae-Myung in the White House that was very robust and very appropriate, about this kind of conduct. Not in your case, of course, that hadn't happened yet. But then, it was, all, sunshine and roses inside the White House.
It actually wasn't, Frank, because
wasn't it?
Yeah, there was a direct question asked about Lee Jae-Myung sent his special prosecutors, invaded the Osan Air Base, the largest dedicated joint air base in South Korea. And there was an explicit media question that Trump had Lee Jae-Myung answer. And he claimed that the U.S. military gave permission for that. And they actually accessed and entered the control and command center of that Air Force base, the Osan Air Base. Afterwards, President Trump asked his military leaders and said, did you give permission to this guy to send his special prosecutors into the Osan Air Base? And they all said, no, we didn't. And so Trump knows that Lee Jae-Myung lied to his face about his incursion into the Osan Air Base, the largest joint air base in South Korea.
Which is a security issue, not least, right?
It is. It is.
So we're almost out of time, but Morse, just what can our listeners do to be helpful to you? You've mentioned that a word from somebody senior in the U.S. government could be helpful behind closed doors or otherwise. But what can citizens who recognize that this is an outrage do that might be helpful to you, sir?
I'd appreciate if people would speak out, if I could be linked with media, if there could be communication with our government along these lines. Would definitely appreciate people's prayers. Look, I am somebody who devotes a lot of my time and energy and life to my family. I have a wife and 4 kids. And one of them's about to go off to college right now. I was going to take him there. And it looks like I won't be able to do that. I have another child who I do like almost all the soccer things with this child. And I can't do that because I'm...
Mr. Ambassador, we're out of time. These are all very important priorities, and we hope that you will be able to fulfill them when you return soon. We will do our part. Didi, I want to thank you for calling this to my attention with a press release from Save the Persecuted Christians. You do indispensable work on all of these subjects, and I think our program is helping, hopefully, elevate them as well. God bless you both. Morse, we look forward to seeing you here in the United States in the very near future. God save you,
Frank.
In the meantime.
Thank you, Didi. Yes,
thank you, Didi. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Come back next time if you would. Until then, go forth and multiply.